That's great. A few of the things we really got to talk about is the current landscape.
Mm-hmm.
So with where your focus is, can you share what you're seeing just kind of in DC around the new administration and kind of just the public kind of spheres of influence and what kind of traction you're getting and what you're most excited about moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think the elephant in the room is there going to be a big Build Back Better initiative to address infrastructure, jobs, climate change, et cetera. So I think that's kind of the open question. And even this week they're finishing up important COVID relief. I think our hope is that there's a quick pivot and turn to infrastructure and clean energy jobs, and certainly electrification. That's I think that's the thing that everything else in this space and everything else in DC revolves around that open question. So I think the administration has come in. They've made some very strong and bold early moves. They've committed to 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations. Like I said, I know that EPA and NHTSA, National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, are going to be pursuing jointly fuel economy and greenhouse gas standards. And so they're making progress. I think there's an open question as to whether there's going to be the will in Congress to, resolve all the outstanding disagreements that happen when you start talking about climate change. And so, I think that's why you see, the administration talking about Build Back Better and infrastructure and jobs. And everything gets, I think, is seen through that lens. So you could be addressing COVID, you could be addressing climate change, you could be addressing, the power sector, and it's all going to be, I think, approached or seen through the lens of how can we make this a stronger, more resilient American economy.
With these conversations that you're in, it sounds like that the domestic manufacturing is really the big way to kind of get over a lot of maybe the traditional pushback or other issues you run into. Is that kind of fair to say, or what have you found to be like a really effective way to move the conversation forward and really bring people of all different backgrounds together and see the value in moving forward this way?
Well, so I actually think, and I think it's healthy for the democracy. I think one of the lessons that people took from the last several elections is that we need to do a better job of making the case that both parties are doing it. Whatever you're putting forward as your top priority, you need to be able to go to people and show that it's going to be good for them and their community. And part of the reason is, I think, certainly in times of turmoil and people are strained, they get especially responsive or sensitive to how is this going to impact me as a voter. And so I think if you look at, this last election, you look at the northern battleground, so your Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, you look at Arizona, you look at Georgia, there is, I think, a resonance with that kind of, blue collar, working class, independent voter who is really, they were trying to, they're working two jobs, trying to put food on the table. And unless you can speak to them in a meaningful way about what you're trying to accomplish, I think, I think you're kind of automatically on the losing end. And so that's why I think both parties are increasingly trying to speak that language, which I think is healthy. And so, for us, we believe that electric vehicles address and solve a variety of our challenges that we face as a country. And it's certainly good for the consumers. It's certainly good for climate change and for public health. But more importantly, as we address all those issues, it is an enormous potential to create jobs and really reshore domestic manufacturing. And if you look back to where we were, 10 or 12 years ago, if you look back at 2007, we got our lunch eaten by foreign imports that were more efficient than American-made vehicles. And, that's really the choice that we face. We can either cultivate this sector and take this spark of American ingenuity and turn it into a true success story, or we're going to be ceding this economic opportunity to foreign commercial interests and be reliant on imports. And so it's not just about today, it's about how do the decisions that we make over the next couple of years impact the next decade, and how does the next decade impact the next 3 decades. And so it's just really critically important to get this right, and getting it right means getting it right for local communities and creating jobs.
That's great. And I think one thing to just follow up for my own clarification, I know a lot of the companies that ZETA works with and a lot of the public policy pillars, fun tongue twister there, is kind of around domestic manufacturing. But at the end of the day, it is really about electric vehicles in general. Are there any sorts of maybe pushback or questions that kind of come up around, like you said, you've got Hyundai, you got VW, a lot of other global manufacturers are making some actually great, compelling electric vehicles today. What are some of the ways that that your organizations may be able to help them as well, just by getting more people in the seats and awareness of electric vehicles in general?
Well, the ecosystem is actually, it's very distributed. So if you were to look back prior to World War II, you would have seen a vast number of automotive companies in the U.S. And after the war, that consolidated dramatically. We're now seeing the pendulum swing back the other direction. And there's, I think the reason that you're seeing the incumbents respond in the way that they have is they're receiving a lot of pressure from insurgent, aspiring companies. And I think that's really healthy. And I think when people are clamoring to meet the demands and the needs of consumers, I think it's healthy. That's what the market is for. And I think that's really where this is going, is that increasingly consumers, are going to be looking for a vehicle that meets their needs. And I think early on, and this is, you talk about some of the stumbles, I think the stigma of EVs was, it was a Nissan Leaf, and people didn't really envision the ability for their family to, pile in and go to the soccer practice and all the things that, you do. But now there's these, I think really, competitively priced and competitively capable vehicles that are coming to market. There's already 6 or 7 that are priced below the average price of a MSRP of a internal combustion engine sedan, but there's going to be hundreds of models coming out in the next 5 years. And so I think, and that's both going to be your Volvos and your Nissans. But I think what we're excited about is that, Ford and GM are making commitments, but then you've also got folks like Rivian and Lucid and Faraday and Lordstown and in kind of the medium and heavy duty folks like Arrival and Proterra. They're going to be out there, answering the question for communities and families of how an electric vehicle can best serve their needs. And that's really exciting.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to visit our website, connectingthegrid.com. There you can listen to our podcasts, contact us about sponsorship, or even be a guest on Grid Connections. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a positive rating on your favorite podcast or video streaming service. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out a lot too. Thank you again, and I look forward to us learning more together soon.